Recording begins. Galactic date 47,892.3. You want to know about the day Earth went silent? I adjust my ceremonial robes, my bioluminescent markings pulsing with remembered anxiety. I was there, right in the middle of the Grand Council chamber when it happened. I am Ambassador Nix Brightcrest, representative of the Lumini Confederation, and I still remember that day with perfect clarity. The memory burns bright in my consciousness like the twin suns of my homeworld. Earth. That noisy, chaotic ball of water and rock that never knew when to shut up. For over 2 centuries, they had been broadcasting their existence into space. Radio waves, television signals, digital communications, an endless stream of chatter that made them the laughingstock of the galactic community. Turn it down, some species would complain. Those humans are giving me a headache. But we grew used to it, you see. Their transmissions became the background radiation of galactic society. Their entertainment spread like a virus through our networks. Their music, their music. Even the most stuck-up Centaurian would secretly hum their rock and roll when they thought no one was watching. Council member Raina Blue Shell once told me she had become addicted to something called soap operas. Can you believe it? A respected politician of the Shelkin Empire, obsessed with human melodrama. You never know what those humans will do next, she would say, her carapace changing colors with excitement. They're completely unpredictable. And then, silence. I was in the middle of a routine council meeting, arguing about trade routes with Ambassador Siren Frostweave, that pompous Glacian, who always acted like his species invented space travel, when every communication device in the chamber started blaring alerts. The Earth frequencies had gone dead. All of them, simultaneously. At first, we thought it was a technical malfunction. Check the receivers, ordered High Counselor Marcus Steelwind, his metallic skin reflecting the emergency lights. Run diagnostics. But the receivers were working perfectly. Earth had simply stopped transmitting. The panic spread faster than a quantum wave collapse. Species that had complained about human broadcasts for decades were suddenly demanding answers. The Shelkin trade fleet altered course immediately, rushing toward the Sol system. The Glacian observation posts aimed every sensor they had at Earth. Nothing. "This is impossible," shouted Council member Raina, her shell now a sickly shade of gray. "They can't just disappear. There are 8 billion of them." I remember looking at the holographic display of Earth's solar system, watching as more and more ships converged on it from all directions. The humans had never developed faster than light travel, or so we thought, and their planetary defense systems were primitive by our standards. Yet somehow, they had managed to do something that no species had ever done before. They had made themselves completely undetectable to our most advanced scanning technology. High Counselor Steelwind called an emergency session. I had never seen the chamber so full. Representatives from all 247 member species crowded into the space, their various atmospheric requirements creating a nightmare for the environmental control systems. "We need answers." The council chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices, tentacles, appendages, and electromagnetic emissions. What if it's a weapon? What if they're planning something? That was when Ambassador Jack Sterling's last transmission was played, the final human communication we would receive for what felt like an eternity. The hologram showed him smiling. Humans were always smiling, even when delivering serious news. To the esteemed members of the Galactic Council, he said, his voice carrying that peculiar human warmth that always made you feel like you were the most important being in the room. "By the time you receive this message, Earth will have gone silent. Do not be alarmed. We have not destroyed ourselves, nor have we fallen victim to any catastrophe. We have simply evolved." The chamber went so quiet you could have heard a Minoan thought particle drop. "A delegation has been authorized to investigate," announced High Counselor Steelwind, his voice echoing through the stunned silence. "Led by Admiral Thara Sunweaver of the Stellar Reconnaissance Fleet." I watched as the Admiral stepped forward, her phosphorescent plumage rippling with determination. She was known throughout the galaxy for her methodical approach and unshakable calm. If anyone could unravel this mystery, it would be her. "Ambassador Brightcrest," she said, turning to me, "your species has had the most diplomatic contact with humans. Will you join the investigation team?" I felt every eye, optical sensor, and sensory organ in the chamber focus on me. The humans had always fascinated my people. We had been the first to establish diplomatic relations with them, the first to recognize their potential beneath all that chaos and noise. Of course, I replied, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. Though I should warn you, if there's one thing I've learned about humans, it's that they love nothing more than proving our assumptions wrong. Looking back now, I had no idea how prophetic those words would prove to be. Recording paused for atmospheric adjustment. Recording resumes, galactic date 47,892.3. The journey to Earth took 3 standard weeks. 3 weeks of watching Admiral Sunweaver pace the bridge of the stellar vanguard, her plumage shifting between shades of anxiety. 3 weeks of analyzing that final transmission from Ambassador Sterling, searching for hidden meanings in his infuriatingly pleasant smile. They must have left some trace, Admiral Sunweaver muttered, her talons clicking against the ship's quantum glass viewport. 8 billion beings don't just vanish. I watched the crew, a carefully selected mix of the galaxy's finest minds. Dr. Aria Nightshade, the Shadowkin physicist whose theories on dimensional barriers had earned her 3 Nobel Peace Awards. Professor Thomas Nash, the last human scientist to accept a position off-world before the silence. And senior analyst Finn Lightweaver, my own protege, whose ability to find patterns in chaos had made him legendary among diplomatic circles. Ambassador Brightcrest Professor Nash called out, breaking my reverie. Do you remember the Titan Initiative? How could I forget? 10 years ago, humans had announced their plan to terraform Saturn's largest moon. We had all laughed. Their primitive technology, their limited understanding of molecular reconstruction, it seemed impossible. 6 months, I replied, my bioluminescence dimming with remembered embarrassment. It took them 6 months to transform Titan into a habitable world. We had estimated 50 years, minimum. Professor Nash smiled, that same knowing smile all humans seemed to share. And do you remember what Ambassador Sterling said when the Council demanded to know how they did it? He said, humans work best when everyone tells them something is impossible. The professor nodded, his expression growing serious. We never did figure out how they managed it. Their official reports made no sense, the math was all wrong. The physics contradicted itself. But Titan is still there, still habitable, still impossible. Our ships dropped out of FTL on the edge of the Sol system. Standard procedure called for a careful approach, long-range scans, gradual acceleration toward the target. Admiral Sunweaver took one look at the sensor readings and threw procedure out the airlock. Full speed to Earth orbit, she ordered, her plumage now a brilliant shade of disbelief. I understood her reaction when I saw the readings myself. There was no sign of the massive orbital infrastructure that had been humanity's pride. No stations, no satellites, no debris. Even the moon showed signs of recent alteration, its surface smooth and polished like a mirror. By the first light, whispered Finn, his markings pulsing rapidly. What did they do? Earth hung before us, a perfect blue marble wrapped in white clouds. But something was different. The continents, the oceans, they looked almost artificial in their precision. The weather patterns moved with mathematical perfection, forming fractals that made my eyes hurt. Scanning for population centers, announced Dr. Nightshade, her shadowy form rippling with concentration. This can't be right. The entire planetary surface has been reorganized at the atomic level. The cities, the forests, everything, it's all been reconstructed into some kind of giant. Computer, finished Professor Nash, his voice filled with pride. They turned the whole planet into a quantum computer. The Admiral's plumage went completely white. But that's beyond even theoretical science. The energy requirements alone would be impossible. Nash laughed. Remember Titan, Admiral. Humans love impossible. We spent 3 days in orbit, scanning every cubic centimeter of Earth and its surroundings. Each discovery left us more stunned than the last. The moon, we realized, wasn't just polished, it had been converted into some kind of energy collector. The Earth's core had been stabilized and redesigned to serve as a power source of unimaginable potential. Look at this, Finn called out on the 4th day. He had been analyzing old transmissions, comparing them to our current scans. Their internet traffic. It wasn't random noise like we thought. They were building something, sharing information in patterns we couldn't recognize. Every cat video, every social media post, it was all part of a vast calculation. I remembered how we used to mock their internet. All those pictures of food, endless arguments about trivial matters, countless hours of what we thought was wasted time. Had they been planning this all along? Hidden in plain sight. The fear started spreading through the crew. If humans could do this, could transform their entire world into something that defied our understanding of physics, what else were they capable of? Admiral Professor Nash said quietly during one of our briefings, "There's something else you should know. Before I left Earth, there were rumors. Theories about consciousness transfer, digital immortality. Most of us thought it was science fiction, but..." He gestured at the transformed Earth below. What if they succeeded? What if they found a way to upload themselves? 8 billion minds working together in a planetary quantum computer. The implications hit me like a gravitational wave. Every achievement we had dismissed, every advancement we had underestimated, they had all been leading to this. The humans hadn't disappeared. They had transcended. Messages started pouring in from across the galaxy. The Shellkin reported ancient human artifacts suddenly activating on their worlds. The Glacians discovered entire networks of quantum-entangled particles in their mining colonies, all linked back to Earth. Every species that had ever traded with humans found traces of technology they had overlooked, dismissed, or failed to understand. They were preparing for this, Admiral Sunweaver said, her voice filled with awe and terror. For centuries, they seeded their technology throughout the galaxy, waiting, building, planning. I stared at the gleaming blue world below, remembering all the times I had smiled politely at human ambassadors while thinking them primitive and chaotic. How many times had they smiled back, knowing what they would become? Admiral Dr. Nightshade's voice cut through the silence. "I'm detecting an energy surge from Mars orbit. Something's activating." As we turned our sensors toward the red planet, I couldn't help but wonder, had the humans transformed themselves into something new? Or had they simply shown us what they had been all along? Recording paused for data backup. Recording resumes. Galactic date 47,892.4. The beacon hung in Mars orbit like a suspended teardrop, its surface rippling with patterns of light that made my eyes water. As we approached, I realized why the entire structure existed partially out of phase with our reality. Quantum-shifted materials, Dr. Nightshade breathed, her shadowy form vibrating with excitement. They managed to stabilize matter in multiple states simultaneously. Professor Nash stood at the viewport, tears streaming down his face. "Beautiful," he whispered. "They actually did it." The beacon activated as soon as our ship came within range. A human figure materialized in our command center, Ambassador Sterling, but somehow more. His form shifted and flowed, as if he existed in more dimensions than we could perceive. "Greetings, investigation team," he said, his voice carrying harmonics that made the ship's quantum processors stutter. "I apologize for any concern our departure may have caused. We had hoped to make the transition more gradually, but events forced our hand." Admiral Sunweaver's plumage rippled with barely contained questions. "Ambassador, where are your people? What have you done?" Sterling's smile took on an impossible geometry. "We went forward, Admiral. The quantum computer you detected on Earth. It was never the end goal. It was merely the calculator we needed to solve the equation of existence itself." He gestured, and the space around us transformed. We saw Earth as it had been, then as it was, then as it would be, all simultaneously. Humanity reached a decision point. We could remain as we were, bound by the limitations of three-dimensional space and linear time, or... The vision shifted, and I felt my consciousness expand painfully as it tried to grasp what I was seeing. Structures that extended through time itself, beings that existed as probability clouds rather than fixed forms, thoughts that could reshape reality. "Or you could transcend," I finished, my bioluminescence flickering with understanding. Precisely, Ambassador Brightcrest Sterling's form stabilized slightly, becoming more recognizable. "We discovered that consciousness itself is not bound by traditional physics. The internet you all mocked, it was our first crude attempt at a collective consciousness. The social media you dismissed as wasteful, early experiments in quantum entanglement of minds. Professor Nash stepped forward, his expression a mix of pride and longing. The rumors about digital immortality. They were true. True, but also wrong, Sterling answered. We didn't digitize our consciousness, Thomas. We expanded it. Every human is still individual, still unique, but also part of something greater. We exist now as a quantum superposition of possibilities. The implications hit the galactic networks like a supernova. Within hours, footage of our encounter spread across every world. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The Shelkin Council declared a state of emergency, their entire species frantically studying every human artifact in their possession. The Glacians abandoned centuries of tradition, throwing open their secret research archives. Even the notoriously reclusive Shadow Collective emerged from their quantum clouds to demand access to human scientific databases. Human fever, that's what the news networks called it. Every species, every world, every research institute, all desperately trying to follow humanity's footsteps. The markets crashed as corporations redirected all resources to reverse engineering human technology. Religious movements sprang up overnight, declaring humans ascended beings. Back in the council chamber, chaos reigned. They cannot be allowed to keep this power to themselves, shouted Representative Oren Steelclaw of the Drachnid Imperium, his scales flaring with anger. The balance of power. Balance of power, Council member Reyna interrupted, her shell now shimmering with multiple quantum states. They are beyond power as we understand it. Did you not see the recordings? They exist in dimensions we cannot even perceive. The message continued playing throughout the galaxy. Humanity had not abandoned us, Sterling explained. They had merely gone ahead to prepare the way. The beacon contained instructions not for building quantum computers or transcendence machines, but for learning to think differently. We spent thousands of years thinking we needed better technology, Sterling's message concluded. What we really needed was better questions. The answers were always there, waiting for minds ready to understand them. I watched as the greatest scientific minds of 1,000 species poured over the beacon's data, only to discover that it contained no scientific formulas, no engineering schematics. Instead, it held art, music, poetry, philosophy, games. But these are just human entertainment, protested Admiral Sunweaver, her plumage cycling through confused colors. Professor Nash laughed that knowing human laugh. Entertainment? Admiral? These are humanity's greatest teachers. Every joke contains a quantum paradox. Every story explores dimensional possibilities. Every game trains the mind to think beyond classical logic. The beacon's final message played across every screen in the galaxy. When you're ready to join us, you'll know how to find us. Until then, keep asking questions, keep playing, keep laughing, keep doing the impossible. And most importantly, Sterling's image concluded with that infuriating human smile. Keep watching cat videos. Trust me, they're more important than you think. Recording paused for cognitive realignment. Recording resumes. Galactic date 47,942.6. 50 years passed in what felt like the blink of an eye. 50 years of species working together like never before, united in their quest to understand humanity's legacy. 50 years of watching civilizations transform themselves through art, music, and those ridiculous cat videos. I had just finished my 1,000th viewing of human stand-up comedy, A Historical Archive, when the sensors lit up across the galaxy. They appeared simultaneously in every major system, vessels that defied conventional physics, their forms shifting between states of matter like liquid poetry. The human fleet, if you could call it that, had returned. This is Director Maya Blackwood of the Human Collective, announced a voice that somehow spoke in every language at once. We trust you've been keeping our seats warm. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Some representatives tried to bow, others attempted to match the human's quantum state, and poor council member Reyna's shell cycled through so many colors she nearly overloaded the environmental systems. The ship that appeared in the council space looked like a cross between a soap bubble and a fractal equation. As we watched, it sprouted windows, then doors, then decided the whole concept of inside and outside was too limiting and simply became a space where humans could walk through. Director Blackwood stepped out or in, or sideways through dimensions we couldn't name. She looked human enough at first glance, but her movements left trailing possibilities in the air, each one containing a different version of herself. First, she said with that familiar human smile, "We want to thank you all for taking such good care of our puzzle box." Puzzle box High Counselor Steelwind's metallic skin rippled with confusion. Earth, the beacon, the scattered technology, it was all one big puzzle box, she explained. A test, if you will, not of your scientific advancement, but of your ability to work together. The truth hit me like a quantum wave collapse. The cat videos, I whispered. The jokes, the games, the art, they weren't teaching tools for transcendence. They were teaching tools for cooperation. Professor Nash's voice came from behind us. He stepped through a fold in space-time, looking both older and younger than when I'd last seen him. Humanity's greatest strength was never our technology. It was our ability to share ideas, to build on each other's work, to come together despite our differences. Director Blackwood nodded, her smile containing multiplicities. We needed the galaxy to learn that lesson before we could share what we'd found. Transcendence isn't about escaping physical reality, it's about understanding that we're all connected, all part of the same cosmic dance. The dimensions we've explored, she continued, they're not separate from this one. They're expressions of the same underlying truth: everything is connected. Every choice, every possibility, every moment, they all exist together in a grand symphony of being. Admiral Sunweaver stepped forward, her plumage now a steady, determined blue. But why the silence? Why make us think you had abandoned us? Because, Professor Nash replied, sometimes the best way to bring people together is to give them a mystery to solve. Look around you. Admiral, when have you ever seen the Shelkin and Glacians collaborating on research? When have the Shadow Collective and the Drachnid Imperium ever shared information freely? I looked at the council chamber with new eyes. Species that had been bitter rivals for millennia now sat together, sharing notes on human entertainment. The Quantum Physics Committee had representatives from every known civilization. Even the Environmental Adaptation Board had become a model of cooperative problem-solving. You planned this, I said, my bioluminescence pulsing with realization. All of it. The primitive technology that wasn't primitive at all. The broadcasts that contained hidden patterns. The seemingly chaotic internet that was actually training us to think differently. You were preparing us all along. Director Blackwood's form sparkled with approval. Ambassador Brightcrest, would your species have listened if we had simply told you that the key to transcendence was learning to play together? Would anyone have believed that the next step in evolution required letting go of competition and embracing cooperation? So now what? Asked Council Member Reyna, her shell finally settling on a color of curious anticipation. Now Director Blackwood's smile contained universes. Now we invite you to join us. Not by abandoning your forms or uploading your consciousness, but by expanding your understanding of what's possible when we work together. The Beacon's puzzles weren't just games, they were practice for the greatest game of all existence itself. Professor Nash stepped forward, holding what looked like an ordinary tablet computer. We brought gifts, real ones this time, not secretly encoded lessons, but they'll only work if you use them together. And the cat videos someone called from the back of the chamber, were they really important? Director Blackwood laughed, and her laughter rippled through dimensions. Of course they were. What better way to learn that the universe is full of wonderful absurdity that must be appreciated rather than understood? Speaking of which, she gestured, and suddenly the chamber was filled with cats, quantum cats, probability cats, cats that existed in multiple states simultaneously, all purring in perfect harmony. That's the first lesson of transcendence, she said with a wink. Never take yourself too seriously. And just like that, humanity had done it again. They had turned their greatest prank into the galaxy's greatest lesson, teaching us that the path to advancement wasn't through competition or conflict, but through cooperation, creativity, and occasionally stopping everything to watch funny videos together. Recording ends. Addendum: this account has been verified by the Galactic Council and Humanity's Quantum Collective. All cat videos mentioned have been preserved for their historical and philosophical significance. End of historical document.